My brothers and my sisters, some of the deepest regrets people carry are not because of what they did with their hands, but because of what they said with their mouths. Words that could never be taken back. Words spoken in anger. Words spoken to defend the ego. Words spoken when silence would have saved the heart. You see, not every truth needs your tongue. Not every emotion deserves your voice. And not every situation is improved by your opinion. Allah gave you a mouth, yes. But He also gave you wisdom to know when to close it. And sometimes Allah does not ask you to speak. He asks you to be silent because your peace depends on it. My brothers and my sisters, understand this clearly because it explains more about your life than you realize. Your tongue is not an independent organ. It does not operate on its own. It does not randomly produce words. Your tongue is a messenger and the heart is the source. Whatever lives inside the heart eventually finds a way to escape through the mouth. When the heart is calm, the tongue is gentle. When the heart is grateful, the tongue is soft. But when the heart is disturbed, restless, or insecure, the tongue begins to expose that disturbance. This is why two people can face the same situation yet respond completely differently. One remains quiet and composed. The other becomes sharp, defensive, and emotional. The difference is not intelligence. The difference is the state of the heart. A heart that is unsettled cannot produce peaceful speech. When the heart carries arrogance, the tongue raises its volume. It interrupts. It talks over others. It insists on being heard. When the heart carries insecurity, the tongue rushes to explain. It over-justifies. It defends before being accused. It fears silence because silence feels like losing control. And when the heart carries wounds that were never healed, the tongue becomes reckless. It lashes out. It says things it later regrets. It hurts others not because it wants to, but because it is hurting itself. Many people say, "I didn't mean it." But my brothers and sisters, let us be honest with ourselves. Words do not appear from nowhere. The tongue does not invent thoughts. It reveals them. If anger comes out easily, anger was already inside. If cruelty slips out, cruelty was already present. If bitterness leaks into your speech, bitterness has been sitting in the heart for a long time. This is not meant to shame you. It is meant to wake you up. Allah is showing you what needs healing. Look at how you speak when you are tired. Look at how you speak when you are challenged. Look at how you speak when you feel disrespected. That is the real mirror of the heart. If your speech is constantly defensive, it means something inside you feels threatened. Not threatened by the words of people, but threatened in identity, value, or worth. You feel the need to protect yourself through speech because the heart does not feel safe. If your speech is constantly harsh, something inside you is unsettled. There is pressure, there is frustration, there is an emotional weight you have not released. And if your speech is always explaining, justifying, arguing, pause and reflect, why do you feel the need to convince everyone? A heart that is at peace does not chase validation. A heart that trusts Allah does not panic in silence. A heart that knows its worth does not argue with every opinion. This is why silence is so powerful. Silence is not weakness. Silence is often a sign that the heart is strong enough not to react. Anyone can speak. Anyone can react. Anyone can say the first thing that comes to mind. But it takes strength to pause. It takes discipline to restrain the tongue. And it takes faith to trust that silence will not harm you. Some people fear silence because silence feels like surrender. But silence, when chosen wisely, is not surrender. It is control. When you are silent, you are telling your ego, you are not in charge. You are telling your emotions, you do not lead me. You are telling your heart, we will not react blindly. And this is where real healing begins. You see, many people try to fix their speech by forcing politeness. They memorize better words. They practice sounding calm, but they never fix the source. That is like cleaning water while the pipe remains dirty. If you want the tongue to calm down, you must work on the heart. If you want peaceful speech, you must build inner peace. If you want wisdom in your words, you must create stability inside. Ask yourself hard questions. Why does criticism bother me so much? Why do I feel attacked when someone disagrees? Why do I feel the need to respond immediately? These are not tongue problems. They are heart signals. And Allah in His mercy allows your tongue to expose them so you can address them. When the heart learns patience, the tongue slows down. When the heart learns humility, the tongue softens. When the heart learns trust in Allah, the tongue relaxes. You stop needing to explain yourself to everyone. You stop needing to win every discussion. You stop needing to be heard in every room because your heart finally feels secure. And that security does not come from people. It comes from Allah. A heart connected to Allah does not rush to defend itself. It knows that honor comes from Him. It knows that dignity is protected by Him. It knows that silence will not erase its value. So my brothers and sisters, if your tongue feels out of control, do not only blame your words. Look deeper. Heal what is unsettled. Soften what is hardened. Release what is hurting. Fix the heart. And the tongue will calm down on its own. Because when the heart finds peace, the tongue has nothing left to fight for. Many people believe peace is stolen by circumstances, by people, by hardship. But if we are honest, peace is most often lost by the tongue. Not because life was unbearable, but because someone spoke when they did not need to. Think about it carefully. How many nights of rest were lost because of a single sentence? How many hearts were disturbed because of one unnecessary reply? How many relationships were strained because someone refused to let a thought remain unspoken? Peace rarely disappears suddenly. It leaks away word by word. Every time you speak without wisdom, something inside you tightens. Every time you argue just to prove a point, your heart becomes heavier. Every time you respond emotionally instead of patiently, peace quietly walks out. People say, I had to say it. No, you wanted to say it. And wanting to speak is not the same as needing to speak. Not every thought is meant to be released. Some thoughts are tests. Some emotions are traps. Some reactions are invitations to chaos. The tongue does not understand consequences. The heart must guide it. When you speak in anger, peace leaves immediately. Not later, immediately. Because anger narrows your vision. It blinds your judgment. It makes short-term relief feel more important than long-term peace. You feel better for a moment, then the regret arrives. Then the guilt, then the replaying of words in your mind. That is the price of uncontrolled speech. And when you argue to win, peace leaves even faster. Winning an argument does not heal the heart. It inflates the ego. And ego is expensive. You may walk away feeling victorious, but inside you are restless. Your mind keeps rehearsing. Your heart stays tense. Your spirit feels unsettled. Peace does not live where ego dominates. And then there is the most costly habit of all, explaining yourself to someone who has already decided not to understand you. My brothers and sisters, this is where many people destroy their peace. You explain, they twist. You clarify. They mock, you defend. They dismiss. And you keep going, hoping the next sentence will finally change their mind. It won't. Peace does not survive in conversations that were never meant to be sincere. Some people are not listening to learn. They are listening to reply. Some are not seeking truth. They are seeking control. Every word you offer in that space drains you. That is why silence is not emptiness. Silence is protection. Silence preserves energy. Silence guards dignity. Silence prevents regret. A person at peace does not need the last word. They need rest for the heart. And understand this clearly. Being right is not the same as being at peace. You can be correct and miserable. You can win the debate and lose your calm. You can speak the truth in the wrong moment and pay for it emotionally. Wisdom is not knowing what to say. Wisdom is knowing when saying nothing is better. Some people think silence means they are weak. No. Silence often means they are disciplined. Anyone can speak. Anyone can react. Anyone can type a reply, send a message, raise a voice. But it takes strength to pause and say, this is not worth my peace. It takes maturity to walk away from a conversation that feeds negativity. It takes faith to trust that not every issue needs your intervention. When you stay silent, you are not losing control. You are choosing control. You are choosing not to let someone else dictate your emotional state. You are choosing not to hand your peace to a moment of impulse. You are choosing yourself. And this is something many people never learn. They trade peace for temporary satisfaction. They trade calm for the illusion of power. They trade silence for noise and then wonder why their hearts are exhausted. Peace is delicate. It cannot survive constant conflict. It cannot grow in loudness. It cannot remain where every emotion demands expression. That is why the people with the most peace often speak the least. They choose their words carefully. They measure the cost before opening their mouths. They understand that silence is not loss, it is investment. An investment in clarity, an investment in dignity, an investment in emotional stability. My brothers and sisters, if you feel drained after speaking, that speech was too expensive. If you feel restless after arguing, that argument cost you peace. If you replay conversations in your mind, something should have remained unsaid. Learn to protect your inner calm like something precious, because it is. Not every comment deserves a response. Not every accusation needs defense. Not every misunderstanding requires correction. Some things are better left with Allah. Some battles are better avoided. Some words are better swallowed. Because peace is not found by speaking more. Peace is found by knowing when to stop. My brothers and my sisters, there comes a moment in every believer's life when Allah places them in a situation where speaking feels tempting, defending yourself feels necessary, and silence feels dangerous. Your reputation feels threatened, your intentions are questioned, and your name is mentioned in ways that are unfair. In those moments, the nafs screams that you must respond immediately, that if you stay quiet, people will misunderstand you, that silence will be taken as guilt or weakness. This is exactly where the test lies, because Allah is not watching to see how fast you speak. He is watching to see how deeply you trust Him. Many people believe they must protect themselves with words, but they forget who truly controls honor and disgrace. You do not own your reputation, Allah does. You do not manage how hearts turn toward you or away from you, Allah does. When you rush to defend yourself, when you argue to correct every narrative, when you feel the need to explain every detail, what you are really saying is that you trust your tongue more than you trust Allah's justice. That is a dangerous position for the heart, because it quietly pushes Allah out of the picture and places the ego at the center. There is a profound difference between clarity and insecurity. Clarity speaks when it is beneficial and stops when it is not. Insecurity speaks constantly because it is afraid of silence. When your heart is truly anchored to Allah, silence no longer feels like abandonment. It feels like surrender, and surrender to Allah is never loss. Allah does not need your assistance to defend you. He does not require your explanations, your screenshots, your emotional speeches, or your desperate justifications. He requires your patience and your trust. Understand this deeply. Allah sees what people say about you even when you do not hear it. He knows the lies spoken behind closed doors. He knows the intentions twisted and the truths hidden. And when you remain silent for His sake, not out of fear but out of reliance, Allah intervenes in ways you could never engineer with words. He changes hearts without announcing it. He reveals truth without noise. He removes falsehood without confrontation, and often He does this while you are completely unaware. Many people destroy their peace by trying to manage perceptions. They spend their energy correcting every misunderstanding, defending every accusation, and responding to every provocation. In doing so, they exhaust their hearts and still fail to control the outcome. Silence, when guided by faith, is not passive. It is an active decision to place the matter in Allah's hands. It is saying, "Oh Allah, you know the truth, and that is enough for me." That statement, even when unspoken, carries immense weight. There is a reason why Allah praises patience in situations of injustice. Patience is not weakness, it is confidence in divine timing. When you speak too soon, you interrupt what Allah may have planned to unfold. When you rush to defend yourself, you may block a lesson meant for the other person. When you insist on being understood immediately, you deny Allah the space to demonstrate His justice. Silence creates room for Allah to work, and Allah works best when the servant stops interfering. You must also understand that not everyone deserves access to your explanation. Some people do not want clarity, they want control. They do not want truth, they want reaction. When you speak to such people, you feed their intention. When you stay silent, you starve it. Silence removes fuel from manipulation, because manipulation relies on emotional response. A silent servant is a difficult servant to exploit. This does not mean you never speak. Islam does not teach silence in the face of oppression when speech is required, but it does teach restraint when speech only feeds ego, escalates conflict, or serves no constructive purpose. Wisdom is not found in always defending yourself. Wisdom is found in knowing when Allah is defending you better than you ever could. Many people later look back and realize that the moments they regret most were not when they stayed silent, but when they spoke unnecessarily. Words spoken in haste cannot be retrieved. Reputations defended emotionally often suffer more damage. Silence, however, leaves no scars. Silence allows dignity to remain intact and trust in Allah to deepen. So my brothers and sisters, when you are misunderstood, pause. When you are accused, breathe. When you are tempted to explain yourself repeatedly, step back and ask a simple question. Is this about truth, or is this about my ego wanting relief? If it is the ego, silence is your cure. If it is truth and benefit, speak with wisdom and restraint. Allah does not abandon the silent servant. He elevates them. He speaks for them in ways that reach places their words never could. He places respect in hearts without announcements. He restores honor without confrontation, and when Allah takes over your defense, the outcome is always better than anything your tongue could have achieved. My brothers and my sisters, this lesson requires honesty, because without honesty, we will lie to ourselves while thinking we are defending the truth. Most arguments people engage in are not born from a desire for clarity or guidance. They are born from wounded pride. They are born from the ego feeling challenged, questioned, or exposed. If we pause and examine our arguments carefully, we will see that very few of them were truly necessary, and even fewer brought us closer to Allah. When you argue, ask yourself what you are really protecting. Is it truth, or is it your image? Is it understanding, or is it your position? Many people say they are just explaining, but explanation does not require anger. Explanation does not require raised voices. Explanation does not require humiliation of the other person. When emotions enter the conversation, truth quietly exits. The ego is uncomfortable with being wrong. It is uncomfortable with being questioned. It is uncomfortable with silence after someone challenges it. That discomfort creates urgency, and urgency pushes words out of the mouth before wisdom has time to intervene. This is why arguments escalate quickly. One sentence becomes 2, then 10, then something is said that cannot be undone. The ego feels temporary relief, but the heart pays the price. Understand this clearly. Truth does not need aggression. Truth is stable. Truth can wait. Truth does not panic when it is misunderstood. Ego, however, cannot tolerate delay. Ego needs immediate correction, immediate dominance, immediate validation. That is why ego-driven arguments feel intense and exhausting, while truth-driven conversations feel calm and measured. Look at how people argue today, interrupting, mocking, exaggerating, bringing up the past, attacking character, instead of addressing the issue. None of this serves truth. All of it serves ego. The goal is no longer understanding. The goal is winning. And winning an argument is one of the emptiest victories a person can achieve, because it leaves the heart restless and the relationship damaged. A person seeking truth listens more than they speak. A person feeding the ego speaks more than they listen. This is a simple but powerful test. When you notice yourself preparing your reply while the other person is still speaking, you are no longer listening. You are defending, you are protecting an identity, not seeking clarity. At that moment, silence would have been more beneficial than speech. Many people confuse confidence with loudness. Confidence does not shout. Confidence does not insult. Confidence does not need to overpower others to feel secure. True confidence is calm, because it is not threatened by disagreement. A heart that is settled does not fear opposing views. It considers them, filters them, and responds only if there is benefit. Arguments also steal something far more valuable than time. They steal humility. When you argue from ego, you stop being teachable. Even if the other person says something correct, your heart rejects it because accepting it would feel like defeat. This is why ego is dangerous. It blocks growth while pretending to protect dignity. Islam does not teach us to silence truth, but it teaches us to speak it with wisdom. Wisdom includes timing, tone, and intention. If your intention is to dominate, even the truth becomes harmful. If your intention is to guide, you will know when to stop speaking. Not every setting is suitable for correction. Not every person is open to advice. Forcing truth into a closed heart only hardens it further. There is also a subtle form of ego that hides behind righteousness. A person convinces themselves they are arguing for the sake of Allah, but their anger, impatience, and harshness reveal otherwise. If the argument increases arrogance, resentment, or contempt, then Allah is not pleased with it, regardless of the words used. Allah does not need you to defend Him through ego. He is far greater than that. Silence in many cases is the cure for ego. Silence starves it. Ego thrives on reaction, attention, and dominance. When you refuse to engage, the ego weakens and the heart regains control. This is not cowardice, this is discipline. It is the ability to say, I do not need to prove myself here. My brothers and sisters, not every disagreement requires your participation. Not every incorrect statement needs your correction. Not every challenge is an invitation to debate. Sometimes the most truthful response is restraint. Sometimes the most powerful statement is walking away with your character intact. If an argument is feeding your pride, leave it. If it is disturbing your peace, exit it. If it is pulling you away from humility, abandon it. Truth will remain true even if you do not shout it. Your dignity, however, is far more fragile. The believer chooses growth over victory, wisdom over dominance, and peace over ego. And when the ego is placed back in its rightful position, arguments lose their grip and the heart finally breathes again. Many people limit worship to what is visible. They think worship is only in the movements of the body, in the posture of prayer, in the sound of recitation, or in the presence of others who can see it. But some of the most powerful forms of worship are invisible. They happen inside the chest, in moments where no one applauds you, no one notices you, and no one knows the struggle except Allah. Silence, when chosen for the sake of Allah, is one of those forms of worship. It is easy to speak. It is easy to react. It is easy to say what the ego demands in the heat of the moment. What is difficult is restraint. What is difficult is holding back a word that would feel satisfying to release. That difficulty is exactly why it carries reward. Allah does not reward what costs you nothing. He rewards what you sacrifice for His sake. When you hold your tongue while you are angry, you are not suppressing truth. You are disciplining the self. You are telling your nafs that it does not control you. You are choosing Allah over impulse. That decision, though silent, is heavy on the scale of deeds. The angels record it even if no human witnesses it. Many people think worship is only about doing more. Sometimes worship is about stopping the tongue, stopping the argument, stopping the need to respond. In those moments, silence becomes an act of obedience. It is a conscious choice to protect your heart from sin and your character from damage. Consider how many sins are committed through speech: backbiting, sarcasm, humiliation, lies, exaggeration, breaking trust, hurting hearts. The tongue is small, but its reach is vast. That is why restraining it is not a minor act, it is a major struggle. When you remain silent to avoid harming someone, you are actively choosing righteousness. On the day of judgment, many people will be shocked by what weighs heavily on their scale. It will not only be their prayers and fasting, but the words they did not say, the insults they swallowed, the anger they restrained, the arguments they walked away from. These silent victories are often forgotten in the world, but they are remembered by Allah. Silence also protects sincerity. When you speak too much, the ego often sneaks in. You begin to speak to be admired, to be acknowledged, to be seen as wise or superior. Silence, however, keeps your intention clean. There is no audience, there is no praise, there is only you and Allah. That is where sincerity is strongest. This does not mean that silence is always required. Islam does not teach silence in the face of injustice or falsehood when speech is necessary. But it does teach restraint when speech would only inflame emotions, damage relationships, or serve the ego. Worship is not reckless, it is wise, it is measured, it considers consequences. There are moments when you feel justified in speaking, you feel wronged, you feel disrespected, you feel misunderstood. In those moments, Ask yourself a simple question. Will this bring me closer to Allah, or will it simply bring relief to my ego? If the answer is ego, silence becomes an act of worship. You are choosing the pleasure of Allah over the comfort of self. Silence also trains patience, and patience is one of the highest qualities a believer can develop. Patience is not passive, it is active endurance. It is the ability to carry discomfort without disobedience. When you remain silent while provoked, you are strengthening that muscle. Over time, it becomes easier. The heart becomes calmer. The reactions slow down. The soul matures. Many people regret what they said in moments of emotion. Very few regret what they chose not to say. Words once released cannot be retrieved. Silence, however, leaves no scars. It leaves space for reflection, repentance, and growth. That is why silence is safer for the soul. My brothers and sisters, do not underestimate the spiritual weight of restraint. When you guard your tongue for the sake of Allah, you are engaging in a form of worship that polishes the heart. You are aligning your inner state with obedience. You are choosing character over impulse. And remember this, Allah sees the word you held back just as clearly as the word you spoke. He knows the struggle behind your silence. He knows the temptation you resisted, and He does not let that effort go unrewarded. Sometimes the most powerful prayer is not spoken. Sometimes the most sincere worship is silence. My brothers and my sisters, one of the greatest mistakes people make is believing that speaking more makes them wiser, stronger, or more respected. In reality, excessive speech often does the opposite. It exposes impatience, insecurity, and a lack of awareness. Wisdom is not measured by how much you say, but by how much you understand before you speak. When you speak constantly, you leave no room to observe. You are too busy expressing to notice, too busy reacting to reflect. Observation requires stillness, and stillness is only possible when the tongue is at rest. This is why people who talk the least often see the most. They notice shifts in tone, changes in behavior, and intentions hidden beneath words. They are not distracted by their own voice. Silence sharpens perception. When you are quiet, you begin to see patterns instead of isolated incidents. You recognize who speaks with sincerity and who speaks with performance. You notice who listens and who waits for their turn to talk. You begin to understand people without them revealing everything. This kind of awareness is not learned through books alone. It is developed through restraint. Many people talk themselves into problems. They reveal plans too early. They share emotions too openly. They express opinions without understanding the environment. Later, they wonder why they feel exposed, misunderstood, or drained. The problem was not intention. The problem was lack of observation. They spoke before they understood the situation fully. When you observe more, your words become fewer but heavier. You no longer speak to fill silence. You speak with purpose. Each sentence carries weight because it comes from understanding, not impulse. People begin to listen more carefully, not because you demand attention, but because your words are rare and measured. Observation also protects you from manipulation. When you speak less, you reveal less about your fears, desires, and weaknesses. This is not about secrecy or deception. It is about wisdom. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Some people collect information not to help you, but to use it against you. Silence acts as a filter, allowing only trusted individuals to see deeper. There is also a form of arrogance hidden in excessive speech. It is the assumption that your opinion must always be heard, that your perspective is always necessary. Observation humbles the heart. It reminds you that you do not know everything, that others may carry insights you have not considered. A humble heart learns more than a loud one. When you observe more, you also understand yourself better. You notice your triggers. You recognize what provokes emotional reactions. You become aware of habits in your speech that need correction. This self-awareness is essential for growth. Without it, a person continues repeating the same mistakes while blaming others for the outcomes. The Prophet taught us that a believer is thoughtful with speech. This thoughtfulness comes from observation. It comes from pausing before responding, from considering consequences, from understanding the impact of words. Speaking less is not about being silent all the time. It is about removing noise so that clarity can emerge. Many people fear silence because silence forces them to confront their thoughts. Talking becomes a distraction. When you reduce speech, you increase reflection. Reflection leads to insight. Insight leads to wisdom. This process cannot happen in a noisy heart. My brothers and sisters, do not measure your value by how often you speak. Measure it by how accurately you understand. Let your silence teach you. Let observation guide you. Over time, you will find that your words naturally decrease, but their effect increases. A quiet tongue creates space for a sharp mind and a settled heart. And when you finally do speak, your words will not come from impulse, but from clarity. My brothers and my sisters, one of the greatest misunderstandings in our time is the belief that silence means weakness. People think that if you do not respond immediately, if you do not defend yourself loudly, if you do not assert your position forcefully, then you must be afraid. This belief is false, and it has caused many people to lose their dignity, their peace, and their spiritual balance. Silence is not the absence of strength, it is the presence of control. Anyone can react, anyone can raise their voice, anyone can fire back a response fueled by emotion. That requires no discipline at all. It requires only impulse. But to pause, to restrain the tongue, and to remain composed when provoked requires mastery over the self. And mastering the self is far more difficult than overpowering another person with words. True strength is not measured by how quickly you respond, but by how well you govern yourself. When you remain silent in moments where your ego demands expression, you are asserting authority over your nafs. You are saying that your emotions do not lead you and that your reactions are guided by wisdom, not impulse. This level of control is rare, and that is why it is often misunderstood. Silence also reflects confidence. A confident heart does not rush to prove itself. It does not panic at criticism. It does not fear misunderstanding. It knows that its worth is not determined by public opinion or immediate approval. This confidence comes from being anchored in Allah, not in validation from people. There are moments when people provoke you deliberately. They say things to trigger a response, to pull you into an argument, to drain your energy. When you react, you give them exactly what they want. When you remain silent, you deny them that power. Silence breaks the cycle. It removes control from the hands of the provocateur and returns it to you. Mastery also means choosing long-term outcomes over short-term relief. Speaking in the heat of the moment may feel satisfying, but that satisfaction fades quickly, leaving behind regret. Silence may feel uncomfortable at first, but it preserves your dignity and protects your heart. Over time, the discomfort fades, but the benefit remains. Some people believe that staying silent means accepting injustice or admitting fault. This is not true. Silence is not agreement. Silence is strategy. There are times when speech is necessary and required, and Islam does not teach passivity in the face of oppression. But there are also times when speech only escalates conflict, damages relationships, or serves the ego. Wisdom lies in knowing the difference. A person who has mastered silence knows when to speak and when to stop. They do not feel compelled to comment on everything. They do not chase the last word. They do not engage in every battle presented to them. They understand that not every situation deserves their energy. My brothers and sisters, the strongest people you will meet are often the calmest. They do not need to announce their strength. It is visible in their composure. It is heard in the restraint of their speech. It is felt in the peace they carry. When you learn to be silent without bitterness, calm without arrogance, and firm without hostility, you reach a level of maturity that few achieve. This is mastery. This is strength. This is dignity. Silence, when guided by wisdom and faith, is not retreat. It is command. My brothers and my sisters, if there is one thing to take from all of this, let it be this. Your tongue can either be your doorway to peace or the weapon that destroys it. Life will continue to test you with people who misunderstand you, situations that provoke you, and moments where speaking feels urgent. These tests are not accidents. They are opportunities to see who is in control, your ego or your faith. You were not created to react to everything. You were created to respond with wisdom. And wisdom does not live in constant speech. It lives in restraint, in a